Imagine watching your father burn alive on water itself, the flames chasing him beneath the waves, turning the sea into a liquid hell where drowning becomes mercy. Constantinople, 674 AD. The most advanced city on earth is starving, surrounded, about to fall. And one man clutching a scorched journal is about to unleash a weapon so terrifying that enemies would believe the Byzantines had made a pact with demons. This is the story of Greek fire, the secret that saved an empire and cursed everyone who touched it. The Bosphorus Strait chokes with enemy sails. Over 200 Arab warships form an iron noose around Constantinople, the jewel of the Byzantine Empire, the last bastion of Rome's legacy in the East. For 3 years, the Caliphate's fleet has maintained this stranglehold, and now, in the summer heat of 674, the city is dying from within. Grain supplies are nearly exhausted. Wells run dry. Emperor Constantine IV walks the Theodosian walls each morning, watching his people weaken, watching his empire's final chapter being written in starvation and despair. But empires don't die quietly. They burn. On the deck of a merchant vessel attempting to run the blockade, a young man named Marcus Kallinikos stands beside his father and older brother. The family business, 3 generations of Mediterranean traders, has been reduced to this desperate gamble. Smuggle grain from sympathetic ports, slip past the Arab patrols, feed a dying capital. Marcus's hands shake as he helps unfurl the sails. He's not a sailor. He's an engineer, or he was, before the Imperial Academy expelled him for reckless experimentation with incendiary compounds. Before his obsession with fire got him labeled dangerous, unstable, unfit for civilized scholarship. His father had begged him to give up those experiments. Fire is a tool for cooking and warmth, boy, not for your mad visions. But Marcus had inherited something his father never understood: his grandfather's leather journal, salvaged from the great library of Alexandria before the final Arab conquest. Pages filled with ancient Greek formulas, Persian alchemical secrets, Egyptian firecraft that predated the Caesars. Recipes for flames that burned underwater, compounds that exploded on contact with moisture, liquid fires that stuck to skin like glowing honey. Marcus keeps that journal inside his tunic now, pressed against his heart, as Arab patrol ships emerge from the morning mist like hunting wolves. His brother spots them first. 3 sleek Arab dhows, their triangular sails cutting through the water with predatory grace. The Byzantine merchant vessel is heavy, slow, laden with contraband grain. There's no outrunning them. Marcus's father makes the only choice available. He orders the grain dumped overboard, tries to present as an innocent trader with empty holds. But the Arabs aren't interested in cargo inspections. They're interested in sending a message. The first fire arrow arcs across the water, a trail of smoke against the pale sky. Then dozens more, a rain of flame that hammers into the merchant vessel's sails and deck. Byzantine ships use standard incendiaries, pitch-soaked arrows, oil-filled clay pots, nothing sophisticated. The crew scrambles with buckets, dousing flames in the ancient way, the only way anyone has ever fought fire, with water. For a moment, it seems manageable. Then the Arab ships close in, and their bombardiers unleash something different. Clay grenades shatter against the deck, splashing a viscous liquid that ignites instantly. It's not conventional fire, it's aggressive, hungry, spreading faster than men can retreat. Marcus watches his brother slip in the oily substance, watches the flames find him, watches him transformed into a human torch in 3 seconds. His father rushes to help and the fire leaps to him like a living thing. Both men do what drowning sailors have done since the beginning of seafaring. They throw themselves overboard. The fire follows them into the water. Marcus watches from behind the mast as his father surfaces once, twice, each time wreathed in flames that refuse to die in the sea itself. The screaming stops quickly. The burning continues long after. The Arab ships circle the wreckage like sharks, ensuring no survivors, then disappear back into their patrol routes. They leave Marcus alive for the same reason they burned the ship in the first place, to send survivors back to Constantinople with a message written in trauma and terror. Resistance is futile, surrender is inevitable, your ships will burn and the sea will not save you. Marcus Kallinikos floats on debris for 6 hours before a Byzantine patrol finds him. He doesn't speak during the rescue. He doesn't speak during the journey back to the Golden Horn Harbor. He clutches his grandfather's journal and he thinks about fire, about how the Arabs have incendiaries that work in ways that shouldn't be possible, about how the journal describes compounds that operate on similar principles, about how everything his teachers called impossible might actually be the only thing that can save Constantinople. The city Marcus returns to is a shadow of the Constantinople he remembers from childhood. The Forum of Constantine, once bustling with merchants from 3 continents, now hosts desperate markets where people trade family heirlooms for moldy bread. The hippodrome sits empty. No one has energy for chariot races when children are eating leather. The great churches still stand magnificent in their architecture, but the prayers inside have taken on an edge of abandonment, of people speaking to a God who seems to have looked away. Marcus moves through this dying world like a ghost. The Imperial Academy won't readmit him. His reputation as a dangerous experimenter has only grown with his family's death. People whisper that his mad obsession with fire brought divine punishment. He takes shelter in a half-collapsed warehouse near the harbor, in a forgotten basement that he converts into a makeshift workshop. Here, by candlelight, he opens his grandfather's journal and begins to truly read it for the first time. The entries are a mixture of practical chemistry and what seems like fantasy. Descriptions of hydrophoric fire that burns more intensely when water touches it. Formulas combining petroleum seepage, sulfur crystals, quicklime powder, pine resin, and something called liquid naphtha that his grandfather claims to have sourced from Persian oil fields. Instructions for mixing ratios, heating procedures, stabilization techniques. Warning after warning written in his grandfather's increasingly frantic handwriting. This knowledge is dangerous. This knowledge should perhaps remain lost. But if the empire ever faces existential threat, if Rome's final legacy stands at the precipice, perhaps then. Marcus has no funding, no equipment, no official sanction. What he has is trauma converted into obsessive purpose and one unexpected ally. Anna Stefanos appears at his workshop on a cold evening, carrying a crate of supplies she has no business possessing. She's the daughter of Admiral Stefanos, commander of the Byzantine Navy's southern fleet, and she's been watching Marcus. "I remember you from the academy," she says, setting down military-grade bronze vessels, sulfur from the Imperial Armory, sealed jars of naphtha from Navy stores. "You were the one they expelled for trying to create stable liquid fire. Everyone said you were insane." She pauses. "I think you were just early." Anna is not what Marcus expects. She's been educated in her father's world. She understands naval tactics, ship construction, the geometry of maritime combat. She's also furious with the Empire's complacency. "They're still fighting with tactics that Constantine the Great would recognize," she tells Marcus. "Fire arrows, ramming, boarding actions. The Arabs are innovating and we're calcifying. My father goes to war councils where old men argue about which saints to pray to while the enemy fleet grows stronger every week." She has access Marcus needs and motivation that matches his own. Her mother and 2 younger brothers died during a food riot 3 months ago, crushed in a stampede at a grain distribution that turned violent. She blames the siege, blames the Empire's inability to break it, blames the old guard's refusal to try anything unconventional. "If you can create what you claim," she tells Marcus, "I can get you materials. And eventually, I can get you an audience with someone who matters." For 6 weeks, Marcus works in obsessive isolation, emerging only when Anna arrives with new supplies. He's trying to reverse engineer what the Arabs used to kill his family, but also to perfect the ancient formulas his grandfather left behind. The chemistry is delicate, lethal when mistakes happen. Twice, small explosions fill his workshop with toxic smoke that leaves him coughing blood for days. Once, a mixture ignites spontaneously and burns through the wooden workbench in seconds, creating a pool of flame that water cannot extinguish. He watches it burn for 3 hours until the fuel source exhausts itself, taking notes the entire time. He begins to understand the principles. Conventional fire needs 3 elements: fuel, heat, and air. It can be smothered or doused. But what if you created a compound where water itself acted as a catalyst rather than suppressant? Quicklime reacts violently with water, generating intense heat. If you suspended quicklime particles in a petroleum base with sulfur as an accelerant and pine resin as an adhesive agent, then added pressurized naphtha to atomize the mixture during deployment, the theory is elegant. The reality is that every test either fails to ignite or explodes uncontrollably. Marcus needs a controlled burn that spreads aggressively but can be aimed, weaponized, delivered at distance without killing the operator. He's trying to bottle hell and give it a spout. Then, during a midnight experiment, mixing a batch with different ratios based on a marginal note in his grandfather's journal, something extraordinary happens. The compound ignites with a deep whoosh rather than an explosion. The flame is wrong. It's denser than normal fire, almost gelatinous in consistency, burning with an eerie green tint at the edges. When Marcus throws a bucket of water on it reflexively, the fire doesn't extinguish. It expands. The flames spread across the water surface like oil, but burning, actively burning, creating a pool of fire that floats and hunts for new fuel. Marcus stares at this impossible sight, and for the first time since his father died, he feels something other than grief. He feels possibility. He feels revenge taking shape. Anna arranges the impossible, a private audience with her father and 2 members of the Imperial War Council. Marcus is brought to a meeting chamber in the Great Palace complex, still smelling of smoke and chemicals, clutching a sealed bronze flask that contains his compound. Before military leaders whose combined experience spans 80 years of warfare, he makes his pitch with the desperate intensity of a man who knows this is his only chance. Gentlemen, the Empire is dying because we're fighting yesterday's war with yesterday's weapons. The Arabs have new incendiaries. We've all seen them, fires that resist water, that burn with unnatural intensity. I've been studying the chemistry, and I believe I've created something better. Something impossible. He opens the flask carefully, pours a small amount into a bronze basin, ignites it with a hot iron rod. The green-tinged flames dance across the basin's surface. Then Marcus does the thing that makes men gasp. He pours water directly onto the burning compound. The flames surge upward, spreading across the water's surface, creating a miniature inferno in the basin that burns for 30 seconds before exhausting its fuel. The room falls silent. Admiral Stefanos speaks first, and his voice carries the weariness of a man who has lost too many battles. Tricks. Stage magic. Even if it's real, how do you propose to deploy this in actual naval combat? Throw pots of it at Arab ships and hope you don't immolate your own crew. The other counselors nod. They've seen plenty of inventors over the years, plenty of miracle weapons that worked in workshops but failed in real conditions. Marcus tries to explain his design for a pressurized bronze siphon system, for specialized Draman warships with reinforced prows mounting the delivery apparatus, for trained operators who could aim streams of liquid fire at enemy vessels from safe distance. But these men don't understand the chemistry or the engineering. They understand that Constantinople has been besieged for 3 years, that morale is shattered, that conventional military thinking says surrender with favorable terms is better than total destruction. We appreciate your enthusiasm, one counselor says with barely disguised condescension. But the emperor is in final negotiations with the Caliphate. We're seeking honorable terms. Tribute, trade concessions, perhaps ceding some territory in Anatolia. This is reality, not the laboratory. Admiral Stefanos won't even look at his daughter as the meeting ends. Marcus is escorted out with his dangerous compound confiscated for safety evaluation, which means it will sit in some storage room until it evaporates or explodes accidentally. His one chance, burned away by bureaucratic timidity and exhausted leadership. He walks back to his workshop in numb silence while Anna seethes beside him. 48 hours, she finally says. That's how long until the formal surrender delegation meets with the Arab commanders. She stops walking, turns to face him with wild determination in her eyes. My father keeps a patrol boat at the private dock. Small, fast, expendable. If you could demonstrate this weapon in actual conditions, not some bronze basin, not in front of cowards who've already given up. That's treason, Marcus interrupts. theft of military assets, unauthorized weapons testing, probably a dozen other charges. Yes, Anna agrees. It absolutely is. But we're out of time for proper channels. Either we do this now, tonight, or Constantinople falls and your miracle fire ends up as a curiosity in some Arab museum. She's right and they both know it. Sometimes the only path forward is the one that destroys you. 3 hours past midnight, Marcus and Anna push the small patrol boat away from the private dock, using poles until they're far enough out that oars won't be heard. The boat is barely 15 feet long, designed for harbor inspection, certainly not rated for what they're about to attempt. Marcus has brought everything: his remaining compound in sealed bronze vessels, his crude siphon prototype, his grandfather's journal wrapped in oilcloth. If this fails, at least the knowledge won't fall into hands that might misuse it. They row out past the harbor chains, past the anchored Byzantine fleet, into the open waters where Arab patrol ships maintain their blockade. The moon is dark, which helps them stay hidden but makes navigation nearly impossible. Anna handles the rowing with the practiced efficiency of someone who grew up on naval vessels. Marcus assembles his apparatus with shaking hands, mounting the bronze siphon to the bow, connecting it to the pressurized reservoir containing his compound. They're looking for an isolated Arab patrol ship, something small enough that 2 people in a tiny boat might approach without triggering full alert. What they find is a 3-ship patrol group, spread across a half-mile radius, their lanterns marking positions in the darkness. Anna chooses the westernmost vessel, a medium dhow, probably holding 30 men, far enough from the others that they might have a few minutes before reinforcements arrive. "This is insane," Marcus whispers as they approach within 50 yards. "This is absolutely insane." "Good," Anna whispers back. "Sanity is why we're losing." She stops rowing, lets momentum carry them forward, and nods to Marcus. "Show them fire." Marcus opens the valve on his pressurized system, uses a pilot flame to ignite the stream as it exits the bronze nozzle, and aims at the Arab ship's hull. What emerges is not the controlled stream he'd envisioned in his workshop designs. The pressure is irregular, the mixture aerosolizes wrong, and the result is a sputtering spray that barely reaches 30 feet before falling into the water between their boat and the target. But where those droplets hit the sea's surface, they ignite. Green-tinted flames spread across the water like living things, flowing toward the Arab vessel, climbing its hull where the wood meets the waterline, finding the tar-sealed seams and igniting them with sudden intensity. The Byzantine compound adheres to the ship's surface, creating patches of fire that water cannot douse. Shouting erupts on the Arab deck. Men appear with buckets, throw water on the spreading flames, and scream in confusion when the fires intensify instead of dying. Marcus stares at his creation in horror and awe. It's working, imperfectly, chaotically, but undeniably working. The Arab ship is burning from the waterline up, flames spreading faster than crews can respond. Then his apparatus explodes. The pressure vessel ruptures from stress or faulty sealing or divine intervention, Marcus will never know which. The explosion isn't massive, but it's devastating at close range. The bronze nozzle tears free, whipping across the deck like a scythe. Marcus feels searing heat across his left arm and shoulder as ignited compound splashes backward. Anna screams his name. The patrol boat lists violently as fire spreads across its stern. They're 50 yards from a burning Arab ship with 2 more patrol vessels closing fast, and their own boat is now on fire with the same unstoppable flames that Marcus created. Anna makes a decision that saves both their lives. She grabs Marcus, he's in shock, staring at his burning arm, and throws them both overboard on the far side of the boat, away from the Arab vessels. The cold water of the Bosphorus is a mercy and an agony. Marcus's burned arm shrieks with pain. Worse, he's still clutching his grandfather's journal, and he realizes with devastating clarity that he's about to lose it. The oilcloth wrapping won't last. The ancient pages will dissolve into the strait, and all that knowledge, all those formulas, everything his grandfather saved from Alexandria will sink into darkness. Unless he lets it go now, swims for his life, and accepts that some knowledge must be reconstructed from memory alone. Anna is pulling him away from the burning boats. Both vessels are now engulfed, the Arab ship listing badly, crews abandoning to smaller boats. In the distance, alarm bells ring across the Arab fleet. Horns sound from Constantinople's walls. This unauthorized test has triggered a full alert on both sides, and when morning comes, there will be consequences that Marcus can barely imagine. They swim for 20 minutes, Anna half-dragging Marcus, until they reach a rocky outcropping below the Theodosian walls. They collapse on stone, gasping, shivering, watching as fires burn across the water in the distance. Marcus's left arm is badly burned, blistered, possibly ruined. His grandfather's journal is gone. His prototype weapon is destroyed. But the Arab patrol ship is sinking, unmistakably defeated by a weapon that defied every conventional understanding of fire and water. "We did it," Anna says between gasping breaths. "It worked. They saw it work." "They'll execute us," Marcus replies. His voice sounds distant to his own ears, shock settling in. Theft, destruction of military property, unauthorized engagement with enemy forces. "They'll execute us before noon." "Maybe," Anna admits. She's looking at the burning ship, at the way Byzantine watchtowers are erupting with signal fires, at how the entire city seems to be waking to witness something unprecedented. Or maybe, just maybe, someone finally pays attention. As dawn breaks over Constantinople, Marcus Kallinikos sits in a guard cell, his burned arm wrapped in linen, his mind cataloging every formula he can remember from his grandfather's lost journal. Above him, in the palace halls, Emperor Constantine IV is being awakened with urgent reports of an impossible weapon test, of Arab ships burning in ways that contradict the natural order, of two desperate citizens who might have just changed everything or doomed themselves trying. The city holds its breath. The siege continues. And somewhere in the spaces between what's possible and what's necessary, between knowledge and survival, an empire's last hope is either being born or dying in a prison cell. The question that will determine everything isn't whether Greek fire can be perfected, it's whether Marcus will survive long enough to try, and what price an empire will demand from the man who offers its salvation. So here's what I need you to consider. If you possessed a secret weapon that could save millions but would certainly destroy your own freedom, perhaps your own life, would you surrender it to people you don't trust? Or would you let an empire fall rather than become its prisoner? Drop your answer in the comments, and tell me where in the world you're watching from, because this story gets darker before it gets better. They don't execute him. That would be mercy. Instead, at dawn, Emperor Constantine IV stands over Marcus Kallinikos in his cell and makes him an offer that sounds like salvation but smells like a tomb. The emperor is younger than Marcus expected, perhaps 40, with the exhausted eyes of a man who has watched his empire crumble one stone at a time for 3 years. He brings no guards, no advisors, just himself and a proposal that will define the rest of Marcus's life. "I saw your weapon burn an Arab ship last night," Constantine says quietly. "I watched it from the palace balcony. I watched water fail to extinguish it. I watched trained sailors abandon their posts in panic. What you created in desperation, Rome needs in quantity." Marcus's burned arm throbs beneath the bandages. He can still smell the chemicals on his skin, still see his grandfather's journal sinking into the Bosphorus. "Your Majesty, I don't even have the complete formula anymore. The notes were lost in the water. I can reconstruct some of it from memory, but the precise ratios, the stabilization techniques." Constantine raises a hand. "Then you'll have time to remember. You'll have funding, materials, workspace, whatever you require. But understand this, Marcus Kallinikos, the moment you accept my patronage, you become the empire's most valuable prisoner. The formula you create can never leave Byzantine control. Not to allies, not to trading partners, certainly not to enemies. Which means everyone who knows how to make Greek fire becomes a permanent security risk." The words hang in the cold cell air like a blade. "You're offering me a gilded cage," Marcus says. "I'm offering you purpose and the survival of civilization," Constantine corrects. "The Arab Caliphate wants to erase us from history, to turn Constantinople into another conquered city where churches become mosques and Greek learning burns in bonfires. Your weapon is the only thing that can stop them. But weapons this powerful can't be allowed to spread. So yes, it's a cage. But it's a cage where you might save millions of lives. The question is whether your freedom matters more than their survival. What would you choose? Your liberty or the fate of an empire? Because Marcus Kallinikos makes his choice in that cell, and from this moment forward, he belongs to Byzantium in ways that go deeper than citizenship or loyalty. He belongs to it the way a secret belongs to the grave. The workshop they give him isn't in the city. It's on a fortified island in the Sea of Marmara, a rocky outcrop that holds nothing but a stone building, a guard barracks, and a dock where supply boats arrive weekly under armed escort. Marcus is rowed out on a gray morning with Anna beside him. She insisted on accompanying him, claimed she was essential to the project, and Constantine surprisingly agreed. Perhaps because he recognized that Marcus needed at least one familiar face in his exile, or perhaps because Anna's naval knowledge genuinely is valuable. Either way, she's now as trapped as he is. The island workshop has everything Marcus requested and nothing he wants. Bronze vessels of every size, sealed barrels of naphtha and petroleum, crystallized sulfur, quicklime in reinforced containers, pine resin, testing equipment, even a small forge for metalworking. It also has bars on the windows and guards who watch the shoreline constantly. Marcus and Anna are prisoners pretending to be researchers, and everyone maintains the fiction with smiles that never reach their eyes. The first week, Marcus tries to reconstruct his grandfather's formulas from memory alone. He works 18-hour days, mixing compounds, testing burn rates, watching failed experiments fizzle or explode or produce flames that water successfully extinguishes. Anna takes detailed notes, sketches diagrams, measures temperatures with instruments borrowed from the Imperial Observatory. They're feeling their way through darkness, trying to rediscover what Marcus achieved once by accident and lost to the sea. The pressure is suffocating. Every morning, supply boats arrive with messages from the Emperor. How long until production? How many ships can be equipped? When can we break the siege? Marcus sends back estimates that he knows are optimistic, promises built on hope rather than evidence. The truth is he's beginning to doubt whether he can recreate Greek fire at all. Maybe it was a fluke, a lucky combination that can't be replicated. Maybe his grandfather's knowledge is truly lost. Then, on the 9th night, working by lamplight while Anna sleeps in the adjacent quarters, Marcus achieves something that changes everything and damns him forever. He's testing a new ratio, more quicklime, less sulfur, a different grade of naphtha, when the mixture ignites with that distinctive green tinge at the flame's edges. He pours water on it experimentally, expecting disappointment. Instead, the fire expands aggressively, spreading across the stonework table, adhering to the wet surface, burning with intensity that makes him step backward from the heat. It's working. Not just working, it's better than the test that destroyed the Arab patrol ship. More stable, more controllable, more terrifying. Marcus extinguishes it carefully with sand, the only method that seems effective, and stares at the scorch marks on his table. He's done it. He's recreated the weapon that will save Constantinople. And in doing so, he's locked his own chains. Because now he can never claim ignorance, never pretend the knowledge is lost, never escape the responsibility of what he's created. Anna finds him at dawn, still sitting at the work table, staring at the formula he's written on parchment. "You succeeded," she says, reading it in his posture before he speaks. He nods slowly. "I succeeded. And now I'll never be free again. They can't let me leave, Anna. I know too much. Even if the war ends, even if Constantinople survives another 1,000 years, they can't risk this knowledge spreading." She sits beside him, and for a long moment neither speaks. Finally, Anna says something that cuts deeper than any imperial decree. "Then we make sure what you've created is worth the price. We make it count for something more than just survival. We make it save so many lives that your freedom becomes a trade worth making." But here's what Marcus doesn't tell her, what he can barely admit to himself in the privacy of his own thoughts. He's already considering how to destroy the formula, how to make it vanish again before it spreads beyond his control. Because he's beginning to understand that Greek fire isn't just a weapon. It's a curse that will follow Byzantine naval warfare for centuries, a secret that will turn anyone who touches it into a target or a suspect. He's created something that will outlive him, and he's not certain that's a legacy he wants to bear. Still, duty demands action. He sends word to Emperor Constantine. The weapon is ready for scaling up. Within 3 days, a delegation arrives on the island. Admiral Stefanos, Anna's father, along with 2 master shipwrights and a logistics coordinator. They need to discuss production, deployment, training, operational security. The meeting takes place in the workshop, surrounded by sealed barrels of components and the acrid smell of recent experiments. Marcus demonstrates Greek fire for them, a controlled burn in a bronze basin that he then floods with seawater. The flames surge upward, dancing across the water's surface, defying every natural law these experienced naval men understand. Admiral Stefanos, who dismissed Marcus weeks ago as a crank, now watches with the wide eyes of someone witnessing sorcery. "How?" he whispers. "How is this possible?" Marcus explains the chemistry in terms they can grasp. Certain substances react with water to produce heat, other compounds adhere to surfaces and resist dousing. The combination creates a self-sustaining burn that water actually intensifies. But even as he speaks, he sees them retreat mentally. They don't want to understand the principles. They want a miracle they can deploy without comprehending. "Can you produce this in quantity?" the logistics coordinator asks. It's the only question that matters to him. With the right materials and trained assistants, yes, Marcus answers. But there's a problem. A significant problem. He pauses, and in that pause lies the trap that will define Byzantine naval policy for 4 centuries. The formula is unstable. Small variations in mixing ratios, in heating temperature, in the purity of components, any of these can produce a batch that either fails to ignite or explodes catastrophically. Making Greek fire safe enough for naval deployment requires precision that only a few trained operators can achieve. Which means we need a cadre of specialists who know the formula intimately. And every person who learns it becomes a security risk. The room falls silent as the implications sink in. Admiral Stefanos speaks first. "How many operators would you need for fleet-wide deployment?" Marcus has done the calculations. For equipping 30 Draman warships? Approximately 50 trained specialists. They would need to work in isolated facilities, under constant guard, with their movements restricted to prevent contact with foreign agents. He doesn't say what everyone is thinking. 50 people who will live and die as prisoners, their knowledge too dangerous to allow them normal lives. The delegation leaves with promises to discuss security protocols with the emperor. Marcus watches their boat disappear toward Constantinople's distant walls and feels the weight of what he said in motion. Anna finds him on the rocky shore that evening, throwing stones into the sea. "You made it sound worse than it is," she observes. "You emphasized the security risks." He doesn't deny it. Because it is worse than they imagine. Every operator we train becomes a target. Foreign powers will offer fortunes for the formula. They'll threaten families, infiltrate the workforce with spies, attempt kidnapping and torture. And eventually, probably inevitably, someone will break. Someone will sell the secret or have it extracted from them. Then Greek fire spreads beyond our control, and the advantage we've gained evaporates. Anna considers this. "So what's your alternative? Let Constantinople fall because you're afraid of what happens if we survive?" It's a fair question without a good answer. 3 weeks later, Marcus begins training his first apprentice. The young man's name is Demetrius, 19 years old, the son of a baker from the Exochionian district. He's clever with his hands, understands basic chemistry, and most importantly, he's desperate. His family is starving in the siege, and volunteering for this mysterious imperial project comes with guaranteed food rations for his relatives. Demetrius has no idea what he's getting into. None of them do. Marcus teaches him carefully, starting with the individual components before moving to the actual mixing protocols. Greek fire requires precision. The naphtha must be heated to exactly the right temperature. The quicklime powder must be absolutely dry before incorporation. The sulfur crystals must be ground to uniform particle size. One mistake and you get either useless sludge or an explosion that takes your hands off. Demetrius is a good student, attentive and cautious. He asks intelligent questions. He follows instructions precisely. Marcus begins to trust him with more complex procedures, with actual formula production under supervision. And that's when the nightmare truly begins. Because trust is the vulnerability that destroys everything. It happens on a supply delivery day, 6 weeks into Demetrius's training. The weekly boat arrives with materials and provisions. The guards conduct their normal inspection. Everything appears routine. But that night, after the supply boat has departed, Marcus notices something wrong. A seal on one of the naphtha barrels has been broken and clumsily resealed. Not broken during transport. The damage is fresh, done within the last few hours. Someone accessed the materials after the official inspection. Marcus reports it immediately to the guard captain, who conducts a thorough search of the island. They find nothing suspicious at first. Then, concealed inside Demetrius's bedding, they discover a small leather pouch containing gold coins stamped with Arabic script and a coded note written in a mixture of Greek and Arabic that promises more payment upon delivery of the fire formula. The interrogation happens in the workshop, because the island has no proper dungeon. Demetrius is bound to a chair while the guard captain and 2 soldiers extract the truth with methods Marcus doesn't want to witness but can't look away from. The boy breaks quickly, his story spilling out between sobs and screams. An Arab agent approached his younger sister Thecla in Constantinople 2 months ago, before Demetrius even joined the project. The agent claimed to be a merchant, befriended her, discovered her brother was working on a secret imperial weapons program. Then the merchant revealed his true nature, deliver information about the weapon, or Thecla would be sold to slave traders and shipped to Damascus. Demetrius took the assignment intending to resist, to protect the secret, but as he learned more about Greek fire's value, the gold on offer became too tempting to ignore. He was going to steal a sample, pass it to the Arab agent during his next family visit to Constantinople, collect enough money to buy his way out of the empire entirely. Take Thecla and flee north to the Rus territories, start over where Byzantine law couldn't reach. I'm sorry, Demetrius weeps. I'm sorry, I didn't know what else to do. They have my sister. They'll kill her if I don't deliver something. The guard captain looks to Marcus for guidance. This is beyond military jurisdiction. This involves imperial secrets and treason during wartime. The sentence is predetermined by laws older than Constantine's reign. But executing a frightened teenager whose only crime was trying to protect his sister, Marcus feels the weight of that decision crushing down on him. Send word to the emperor, he says quietly. Let Constantine decide. Perhaps there's mercy possible here. Perhaps Demetrius's youth and coercion will count for something. But Marcus already knows the truth. He sees it in the guard captain's face, in the way Anna turns away. They all know how this ends. You don't compromise on secrets that determine whether empires survive or fall. The execution order arrives within 2 days. But it's worse than Marcus imagined, because Constantine doesn't just order Demetrius killed. The decree specifies that Demetrius's entire family must be eliminated to prevent foreign agents from using them as leverage against future operators. Thecla, the sister he tried to save. His parents. 2 younger brothers. All of them declared traitors by association, all sentenced to public execution in the Augustan Square as warning to anyone else considering betrayal. Demetrius receives the news in his cell and something breaks inside him that can't be repaired. He stops eating, stops speaking, just sits staring at the wall with eyes that have gone somewhere far beyond this island, this workshop, this world. When they take him away for transport back to Constantinople, he doesn't resist. Doesn't even seem to register what's happening. Marcus watches the boat carry him toward his death and feels something vital crumble inside his own chest. This is the cost of security. This is what protecting secrets requires. And he's responsible because he created the secret that demanded such protection. Anna finds him that night sitting on the rocky shore again, but this time he's not throwing stones. He's staring at the stars, at the vast indifferent cosmos that doesn't care about Byzantine survival or Arab conquest or one young man's desperate attempt to save his sister. It wasn't your fault, Anna says, but her voice lacks conviction. Yes, it was, Marcus replies. I created something too valuable to exist safely. Greek fire doesn't just burn ships, Anna. It burns people. It burns families. It burns anyone who gets close to it. I've unleashed something that turns human beings into security threats that need to be eliminated. She sits beside him, and for a long time they listen to waves breaking against stone. Finally, Anna asks the question that haunts them both. So what do we do? Abandon the project? Let Constantinople fall to avoid more deaths like Demetrius? Marcus doesn't answer because there is no good answer. They're locked into a course now, committed to seeing it through because turning back means everything they've sacrificed was meaningless. The execution happens 3 days later, and word reaches the island by evening boat. All 6 members of Demetrius's family, displayed on scaffolds in the Augustan Square while heralds read the charges. Treason, conspiracy with foreign powers, attempted theft of imperial secrets. The crowds that gather aren't angry, they're hollow-eyed and starving and beyond emotional response to one more horror in a city full of them. After the executions, Constantine orders the bodies left on display for a week as warning. This is how you protect Greek fire. This is what defending civilization requires. And if you think the price is too high, consider what happens if the Arabs acquire the formula and use it to burn Constantinople itself. Which would you choose, the lives of 6 people or the survival of hundreds of thousands? Because that's the calculation emperors make, the mathematics of necessity that turns morality into a luxury the besieged cannot afford. Marcus receives these reports and retreats into his work with desperate intensity. He trains new operators, 5 of them now, all carefully vetted by imperial security, all warned about what happened to Demetrius and his family. They work in terrified silence, mixing compounds with shaking hands, knowing that one mistake could kill them and one betrayal will definitely kill everyone they love. The atmosphere in the workshop becomes poisonous with suppressed fear and resentment. These men aren't volunteers serving the empire, they're conscripts drafted into a project that will define and limit the rest of their lives. But the work continues because the siege continues, because Arab ships still choke the Bosphorus, because Greek fire is the only weapon that might break the blockade and save Constantinople from starvation and surrender. Production ramps up slowly, carefully. Within 3 months, Marcus's team is producing enough Greek fire to equip 30 Draman warships with bronze siphon systems. The formula is standardized, the mixing protocols documented in coded manuscripts that only Marcus and Emperor Constantine can fully decrypt. The ships are modified in secret dockyards, their prows reinforced to mount the pressurized delivery systems, their crews trained in new tactics built around fire projection rather than ramming and boarding. Admiral Stefanos oversees the naval preparations with the obsessive attention of a commander who recognizes that this is his fleet's final chance. If Greek fire fails in actual combat, there will be no more innovations, no more desperate experiments. There will only be surrender. And then comes the night that changes everything, the moment when theory becomes terrifying reality. It's late August, 677 AD, 3 years into the siege. The Arab fleet has grown complacent with their dominance, maintaining loose patrol patterns, not expecting resistance from a Byzantine navy they've defeated repeatedly in conventional engagement. Constantine orders a night assault targeting the Arab fleet's supply vessels, the unglamorous cargo ships that keep the siege functional, the transports carrying food and water and replacement crews. Marcus watches from the island as the Byzantine Draman warships slip out of the Golden Horn under cover of darkness. 30 vessels moving in coordinated silence toward the Arab anchorage. He's not aboard because he's too valuable to risk in combat, but he's supplied enough Greek fire to arm every ship, train the operators personally, design the tactics they'll employ. This is his creation going to war, and he bears full responsibility for whatever happens next. The Byzantine ships reach their targets without being detected. Then, on a signal flare from the flagship, they attack. 30 bronze siphons open simultaneously, spraying liquid fire across the water toward the anchored Arab supply fleet. The night transforms into chaos and hell. Greek fire ignites in streams of green-tinged flame that arc across the darkness like dragon's breath from ancient legends. Where it strikes wooden hulls, it adheres and burns with intensity that no amount of water can extinguish. Arab crews respond with the learned behaviors of sailors. They throw water on fires. They try to smother flames with canvas. They attempt to cut away burning sections of their ships. Nothing works. The fires spread faster than human reaction time. consuming sails and rigging and deck planking, driving men into the sea where the flames follow them because droplets of Greek fire float on water's surface like incandescent oil. The psychological impact is even more devastating than the physical destruction. Arab sailors have faced fire in naval combat before. Everyone has. Fire is a known danger, a manageable risk with established countermeasures. But Greek fire breaks those rules. It behaves impossibly, burning on water, intensifying when doused, clinging to skin and cloth like living punishment. Within minutes, the Arab fleet descends into panic. Ships cut their anchor lines trying to flee, colliding with each other in darkness, spreading confusion that the Byzantine attack exploits ruthlessly. The drahman crews, trained specifically for this new form of warfare, methodically work through the supply fleet, igniting ship after ship, creating a ring of fire that traps dozens of vessels in a burning hell from which there is no escape. By dawn, 47 Arab ships are destroyed or abandoned. The Bosphorus chokes with debris and bodies. The surviving Arab fleet has withdrawn in disorder, their supply lines severed, their confidence shattered. Constantinople erupts in celebration. Church bells ring for hours. Crowds fill the streets singing hymns of deliverance. Emperor Constantine leads a procession to the Hagia Sophia where the patriarch offers prayers of gratitude for Byzantine salvation. But on his island workshop, Marcus Kallinikos receives the casualty reports and feels no triumph. 3 Byzantine ships were lost to Greek fire accidents. The weapon turned against its users when pressure systems ruptured or operators made mistakes under combat stress. 87 Byzantine sailors died by their own fire, burning on their own decks, screaming for help that couldn't reach them. The Arab casualties are estimated at over 3,000 men, most of whom drowned trying to escape flames that pursued them into the water. Marcus reads these numbers and understands with devastating clarity. He's created the most effective naval weapon in human history, and it's also the most indiscriminately cruel. Greek fire doesn't distinguish between justified warfare and atrocity. It simply burns everything it touches, friend and enemy, guilty and innocent, turning the sea itself into an instrument of suffering. Anna finds him with the casualty reports spread across his work table, his head in his hands. "We won," she says carefully. "The siege is breaking. Arab morale is shattered. Constantinople will survive because of what you created." Marcus looks up at her with eyes that have aged years in a single night. Is there victory in creating something that kills so efficiently? Something that turns water, the substance of life, into fuel for death? Before Anna can answer, a new boat arrives at the island dock. Not the regular supply transport, but an imperial galley carrying Constantine himself. The emperor has come personally, surrounded by guards and advisors, to congratulate his weapons designer and discuss the future. They meet in the workshop where Marcus created Greek fire, surrounded by the tools and materials that made yesterday's massacre possible. Constantine is jubilant, energized in ways Marcus hasn't seen before. "You've saved us," the emperor declares. The Arab fleet is withdrawing. Peace negotiations are beginning from a position of strength. The empire will survive. Your name will be remembered as the man who preserved civilization. But Marcus hears something else beneath the praise. He hears the emperor already planning how to exploit this advantage, how to use Greek fire not just defensively but as an instrument of conquest, how to rebuild Byzantine naval dominance across the entire Mediterranean. "Your Majesty," Marcus says carefully, "the weapon is effective but dangerous. It kills indiscriminately. It causes suffering beyond military necessity. Perhaps now that the immediate crisis is past, we should consider limiting its use or even destroying the formula?" Constantine interrupts, his smile hardening. "Is that what you're suggesting? That we voluntarily surrender the only advantage that saved us from annihilation?" Marcus realizes his mistake too late. He's forgotten that emperors don't think in terms of morality or suffering. They think in terms of power and survival. "No, Your Majesty. I only meant that we should be cautious about how Greek fire is deployed." Constantine studies him with eyes that miss nothing. "You're having doubts. Natural, after witnessing combat for the first time. But understand this, Marcus Kallinikos, you don't get to unmake your creation. You've given Byzantium a weapon that will defend it for centuries. That weapon will be used when and how I determine necessary, not when you feel comfortable with the consequences. You're the inventor, not the strategist. Know your place. The emperor departs with promises of rewards and honors, but Marcus hears the warning clearly. He's crossed from valuable asset to potential problem, from trusted inventor to someone who needs watching. That night, Anna and Marcus stand on the shore watching Constantinople's celebration fires burning across the water. The city is saved, the empire survives, Greek fire has achieved its purpose. So why does Marcus feel like he's standing at the beginning of a curse rather than the end of a crisis? They're going to use it forever, he says quietly. For every war, every conflict, every territorial dispute. Greek fire will become synonymous with Byzantine naval power, and I'll be the man who unleashed it. Centuries from now, people will still be burning because of what I created in this workshop. Anna has no comfort to offer because she knows he's right. Then make sure it's worth it, she finally says. Make sure the empire that survives because of Greek fire becomes something worthy of the price you paid to save it. But here's what neither of them can know. Standing on that rocky shore in August of 677, Greek fire will indeed defend Byzantium for 4 centuries, exactly as Constantine predicted. It will crush the Second Arab Siege in 717, will devastate Rus fleets in 941, will terrorize enemies across the Mediterranean until the formula is finally lost sometime in the 12th century, taking its terrible secrets into the darkness where perhaps they always belonged. And Marcus Kallinikos will spend the rest of his life as the empire's most celebrated prisoner, honored and trapped in equal measure, watching his creation burn across history while he remains locked on an island, guarding a secret he wishes he'd never discovered. So here's the question that will determine everything that follows. When does the defense of civilization become indistinguishable from the barbarism it opposes? When does the weapon you create to save lives become responsible for more death than the enemy you were fighting? Because Marcus is about to discover that Greek fire's curse doesn't end with the Arab siege, it's only beginning, and everyone connected to his creation will burn before the story ends. What happens when the weapon you create to save an empire becomes the very chain that binds you to it forever? Marcus Kallinikos is about to discover that victory has a price that extends far beyond a single battle, and that some prisons are built not from stone and iron, but from necessity and fear. The Arab siege breaks within weeks of that devastating night attack. The Caliphate's admirals, their supply lines severed and their crews traumatized by flames that defy natural law, negotiate a humiliating 30-year peace treaty that leaves Constantinople independent and Byzantine naval superiority unquestioned. Emperor Constantine IV rides through the streets in triumph, hailed as the savior of Christendom, while Marcus watches from his island workshop, knowing that the real celebration should feel different than this hollow emptiness that settles in his chest. The city survives, yes, but at what cost to the man who made that survival possible? Constantine keeps his promises with the efficiency of a ruler who understands that valuable assets must be maintained. Marcus receives a title, estates in Anatolia that he'll never visit, a generous stipend paid quarterly, and a permanent residence on the island workshop that has become less a laboratory and more a luxurious tomb. The emperor frames it as honor and protection. Marcus is too important to risk losing to assassins or foreign agents, too crucial to Byzantine security to allow him normal freedom of movement. But both men understand the reality. Marcus knows the formula for Greek fire, which means Marcus can never be allowed to leave imperial control. He's 29 years old when the siege ends, and he'll spend the next 43 years on that rocky island, perfecting his terrible creation while the world moves on without him. Anna stays with him by choice, though Constantine offers her freedom. She becomes his partner in more than just research, the one constant in a life that has narrowed to the width of a fortified island and the depth of bronze mixing vessels. Together they refine Greek fire's formula, making it more stable, more powerful, more reliable. They train new generations of operators who arrive as young men and leave as middle-aged specialists who will never be free again, their knowledge marking them as permanently dangerous to release. The workshop expands over the years, growing from a single building into a complex of laboratories and training facilities, all surrounded by guard towers and watched constantly by soldiers whose job is as much to keep secrets in as enemies out. It becomes a strange sort of monastery dedicated not to God but to fire, where knowledge is the liturgy and silence is the most sacred vow. The years pass in cycles of production and improvement. Greek fire defends Constantinople again during the Second Arab Siege of 717, when Emperor Leo the Isaurian uses it to annihilate another caliphate fleet that thought 39 years was enough time for Byzantine vigilance to fade. Marcus watches from his island as the Bosphorus burns again, as thousands more men die in flames that spread across water like divine judgment, and he feels nothing. Not pride, not horror, not even the hollow satisfaction of vindication. He's become numb to his creation's effectiveness, insulated by decades of distance from the suffering it causes. The weapon has outlived his capacity to care about its consequences. In 941, when Rus Prince Igor launches a massive invasion fleet toward Constantinople, Greek fire shatters it so completely that Russian chronicles describe Byzantine ships as having lightning from heaven and casting fire into the sea. The Rus warriors, terrified by weapons that seem supernatural, retreat north and never seriously threaten the empire again. Marcus is 63 years old when this happens, his hands shaking from early tremors, his eyesight failing, and he receives the news of another victory with the detached interest of someone reading about events in a distant country that has nothing to do with him. But here's what changes everything, what transforms Marcus's final years from resigned imprisonment into something approaching peace. Anna finds a letter hidden in a supply shipment, concealed inside a barrel of pine resin, placed there by someone who understood exactly where to hide messages from the guard's routine inspections. The letter is from Venice, written in code that Marcus recognizes immediately because he created it decades ago. It's Anna's handwriting from their youth, from before the siege, before Greek fire, before everything changed. Except it can't be, because Anna is standing right beside him reading the letter. Then they both understand simultaneously, and Anna's face transforms with an emotion Marcus hasn't seen in years, hope mixed with grief. The letter is from her younger cousin Sophia, also named Anna, who Anna the Elder had been teaching to write before the siege began. Young Sophia, now a grown woman living freely in Venice, has somehow learned about the famous Anna Stephanos who lives in isolation with the inventor of Greek fire. She's reached out across decades and distance to say, "We remember you, you're not forgotten, the world beyond your prison still exists and still holds space for you." This letter becomes the key that unlocks something Marcus thought had died long ago. The possibility of legacy beyond the weapon, of being remembered as more than just the man who created Greek fire. He and Anna begin a secret correspondence with Sophia, passing letters through sympathetic supply boat crews, describing not the formula or the military applications but the chemistry itself, the principles of compound reactions and thermodynamics, the pure science divorced from its destructive implementation. Marcus writes about his grandfather's journal, about the ancient knowledge from Alexandria that he reconstructed from memory, about the fundamental discoveries that underlie Greek fire but could be applied to metallurgy, medicine, preservation techniques, peaceful purposes. He's teaching across the prison walls, passing knowledge forward in ways that the empire can't control or suppress, creating a legacy that exists independently of Byzantine military dominance. Emperor Constantine dies in 685, and his successors continue the policy of keeping Marcus isolated but productive. Decades blur together, marked by seasonal changes and the aging of his body while the work continues unchanged. But Marcus is doing something subversive with his later years, something that will take centuries to fully manifest. He's deliberately making Greek fire more complex, more difficult to produce, more dependent on rare materials and precise techniques. He's encoding the formula in ways that require institutional knowledge to interpret, creating dependencies that make the weapons production fragile and vulnerable to disruption. He's ensuring that Greek fire, like him, cannot survive beyond its natural lifespan. When the knowledge is eventually lost, as he knows it must be, the loss will be complete and irreversible. This is his final act of rebellion, guaranteeing that his curse will die with him rather than plaguing humanity forever. Anna dies in 701, peacefully in her sleep at 68 years old, after spending 49 years on the island by choice rather than compulsion. Marcus buries her in the rocky soil overlooking the sea where they first tested Greek fire together, and for the first time in decades he weeps, not for the empire or the weapon or the thousands who died, but for the woman who chose to share his prison when she could have walked away. Her final words to him were simple: "It was worth it. Not the weapon, but the life we built despite the weapon. Remember that." He spends his final 12 years alone except for the operators he trains and the guards who watch him, an old man maintaining a terrible secret because duty and habit have become indistinguishable. The letters to Sophia continue, smuggled out by sympathetic couriers, carrying knowledge that will seed future generations of alchemists and natural philosophers who'll never know their inspiration came from the isolated genius who created history's most feared naval weapon. Marcus Kallinikos dies in 713 at the age of 84, in the workshop where he spent his entire adult life, surrounded by bronze vessels and chemical compounds and the tools of his extraordinary curse. The official Byzantine chronicles record his death in a single line: "Kallinikos the firemaker departed this life, having served the empire faithfully." No mention of his imprisonment, his sacrifice, the freedom he surrendered so that millions could live free. His burial is a state affair attended by imperial dignitaries who praise his patriotism while ensuring the operators who knew him are quietly reassigned to even more isolated facilities, because the death of one secret keeper creates dangerous instability in security protocols. But here's the legacy that matters, the part that survives when empires fall and weapons fade into historical footnotes. Greek fire defends Byzantium for exactly 400 years after Marcus's death, just as Emperor Constantine predicted. It becomes legendary, feared across the Mediterranean, the weapon that makes Byzantine dramans invincible in naval combat. Foreign powers offer fortunes for the formula, send spies and assassins to steal it, attempt to reverse engineer it from battlefield remnants. All fail because Marcus designed the knowledge to be fragile, dependent on living transmission, vulnerable to the inevitable collapse of institutional memory. By the 12th century, as the Byzantine Empire enters its final decline, the formula begins degrading. Operators retire or die without perfect replication of training. Supply chains for rare materials break down. The coded manuscripts become increasingly difficult to interpret. And finally, sometime before 1204, when the Fourth Crusade sacks Constantinople, Greek fire is lost completely. The weapon that seemed eternal vanishes into history, taking its terrible secrets into darkness, exactly as Marcus intended. Modern scientists still debate Greek fire's exact composition. Theories propose various combinations of petroleum, quicklime, sulfur, and other compounds, but none have successfully recreated the weapon's full characteristics: the adherence to surfaces, the intensification with water, the distinctive green flame. Perhaps Marcus succeeded in his final rebellion, ensuring that some knowledge dies properly rather than haunting humanity across centuries. Perhaps the curse ended when he did, broken by the death of the man who never wanted to create it in the first place. The empire he saved lasted another 750 years after his death before finally falling to Ottoman conquest in 1453. Constantinople became Istanbul, Byzantine culture dissolved into history, and Greek fire became a legend that people invoke whenever they want to describe weapons of terrible power and mysterious operation. But somewhere in Venice, descendants of young Sophia preserved letters from an old chemist on an island prison, letters that describe not weapons but wonder, not destruction but discovery, the pure science that exists before human beings corrupt it with military application. These letters influenced early Renaissance alchemists, contributed to the development of chemistry as a systematic discipline, planted seeds that would eventually grow into modern understanding of thermodynamics and compound reactions. Marcus Kallinikos, prisoner and inventor, never knowing whether his life's work was salvation or damnation, left two legacies, one that burned across 4 centuries of naval warfare, and one that quietly illuminated the foundations of future knowledge. Which legacy matters more? That's not for history to decide. That's for you. So here's what I need from you right now, because this story demands more than passive watching. In the comments below, tell me this. If you possessed knowledge that could save millions but would cost you everything, your freedom, your future, possibly your soul? Would you do it? Would you become Marcus Kallinikos, the man who saved an empire by imprisoning himself? And here's the harder question. If you could choose which legacy survives, the weapon that defends your people for 400 years, or the peaceful knowledge that advances human understanding forever, which would you choose? Drop your answer below, and tell me which part of Marcus's story hit you hardest, because I read every single comment and your perspectives shape how I tell these stories. If you found value in Marcus's impossible choice, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because next week we're diving into another Byzantine secret that changed history, the Varangian Guard's hidden role in a palace coup that nobody saw coming. History isn't just about dates and battles, it's about people facing impossible decisions and living with the consequences. Marcus Kallinikos made his choice in a prison cell in 674, and 43 years later he died still living with it. What choice would you make? I'll see you in the comments, and I'll see you next week for another story that proves the past is never really dead, it's just waiting for someone to remember it properly.